Hi, this is Randy Wimmer with Government Contracting Academy, and today I am discussing the very lofty title of The Ultimate Guide to Launching a Federal Government Contracting Company. I can't tell you how many times I'm asked for a really great business plan to launch a government contracting company. And I give them the same answer, like, there isn't one. Why? Because business plans do not work. You need a business strategy. Now, this is my definition of a business strategy. It's your personal goals and your company's documented objectives and corporate decisions to achieve them. It is not shelfware. It is not a 200-page template that you find on the internet and has the obligatory hockey stick growth curve somewhere around page 114. They don't work. And here's the reason why business plans don't work. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Dunning-Kruger curve. This curve explains entrepreneurship better than anything I've ever seen. And I tell you what, I love entrepreneurs. I really do, because they go through the ringer. They really do. They're willing to step up to some incredible challenges. And this is the challenge that they have to step up for every single startup. So when you don't know anything, it's very easy to get excited about the concept of something. It's like, for example, the federal government contracting industry. You say to yourself, wow, $1 trillion industry. It has their own small business set-aside program with mandatory earmarks for new and small businesses just like mine. Wow, less than 5% of U.S. companies are actually participating in this industry. That means I immediately eliminate 95% of my competitors by just pursuing this customer rather than another one. This is unbelievable. And every single thing I just said is 100% true. 100% true. And people get really excited and say, well, that's it. I'm launching a federal government contracting company. And then they create a business plan. Now, about the time that they do that, they're almost at the peak of Mount Stupid. And I say that, tongue in cheek. And like I said, I are an engineer. And I are an entrepreneur, so I can say that. So they don't know the challenges yet. Hey, how do I get market penetration? Hell, how do I become compliant? Is there any regulatory issues? How do I get a clearance? My God, this is classified work. How do I do that? How do I write a proposal? How do I price one? Oh my gosh, how do I do payroll? What's a cost reimbursement contract? Where do you learn about that? All of these different challenges. And the fact is they don't know what they don't know. So then they fall into the valley of despair and they say, oh my gosh, this is just really, really, really hard. I never really thought about it. And that's why you need a business framework, a business model to help you climb out of the valley of despair and accomplish your entrepreneurial goals. That business plan, it's obsolete. It's obsolete because it didn't have a clue. You didn't have a clue what needed to be in it when you wrote the damn thing. That's a fact. So it's all about creating a framework to start a company. Now, this is the framework that I created. When I was in the Navy, I was given this just really difficult, challenging, open-ended project. I'm thinking like, wow, man, I don't even know where to start. And when I get really insecure like that professionally, I thought like, hey, I gotta get organized. And this is the way I got organized. I created a business model. Now, I based it upon the ADDIE systems engineering model. So, but I embellished it, and it's now, it's just this bastardized beast out there that I created. However, it works extraordinarily well for a startup company. And this is what it is. It's called the DADDIE framework. As you can guess, DADDIE is an acronym. It's dream, analyze, define, develop, execute, and evaluate. Now, we're going to talk about each one of these phases briefly. Now, in Government Contracting Academy, we focus on each one because each one of these things are extraordinarily important to your success. Most companies fail because they didn't launch the right kind of company. They didn't launch it in the right kind of way. And this helps eliminate that risk. Now, how do I know that? Well, before I used the DADDIE framework, My first launch of analytic strategies in 2003, it failed miserably. Well, one could even argue if it failed, it never even got off the ground. How do you crash and burn without having any movement whatsoever? I didn't even know where to start. In 2006, it failed after 3 years. So at that point, it's 2010, and I'm thinking like, man, this is looking like I'm going to have to go out and get a real job. And I didn't want to do that after having a little bit of success in my relaunch of analytic strategy. So I thought like, hey, I got to get this right. I'm running out of money, because I was living off of savings at that point. So I decided to use the Daddy framework that I had used in the Navy. I modified it a little bit to make it applicable to the entrepreneurial world, but basically it was the crux of what I had done previously in the Navy. Now, once I used this framework, 2010, I sold that company for 8 figures in 2016. Secure Enterprise Analysis, I launched that one. Was awarded multiple contracts in different areas, both the healthcare world and also the logistics world, and I subsumed those contracts as part of analytic strategies. A3IS, we were awarded over $70 million in contracts, and I sold my shares to that company. Planet Risk and Planet Risk Federal, well, we ended up splitting those two companies and selling both of them in separate acquisitions. So, does the Daddy framework work? Yeah. Does it work just in the government contracting industry? No, it works everywhere. I used it to launch our family-owned and operated nonprofit organization, and we received the President George H.W. Bush Points of Light Award because of its successes. Remain Prepared, I launched that with my kids. Guess what? We were providing thousands of Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts with study resources to help them advance in Scouts so they'd stay in. And then EcoCierge. If you haven't read my book yet, I highlight the successes of EcoCierge. We marketed that company for 2 days, and it had tens and tens of thousands of dollars in revenue booked off of 2 days of marketing. My teenage son was thinking about foregoing college because of its success, because we were on a no-kidding trajectory to make literally hundreds of thousands of dollars that first year in operations. And at that point, I just pulled the plug on it. To this very day, years later, I'm still getting phone calls and emails for business for EcoCierge based upon 2 days of marketing like a half a decade ago. It's crazy. But that's how successful that venture was. And I used the Daddy framework for each one of those. So let's get started. The first D in the Daddy framework is dream phase. That's where you identify your personal goals. So the deal is my oldest son, he's still contemplating launching a federal government contracting company. So we're going through this right now as we speak. And he says, hey, I have a dream of becoming financially independent by the time he's 30 years old. And like, buddy, you can definitely do that. So what does that really equate to? Well, he's got to take that dream of financial independence and being able to do whatever he wants as a 30-year-old and on into personal goals, something that can be achieved. And we kind of pulled the string on that, and he believes that that's having $10 million in an investment portfolio in 7.5 years when he turns 30 years old. So that's the important things of the dream. A dream is what makes all this happen. Without a dream, everything else is just academic. It's like, well, what's the purpose? So, but you got to translate those into tangible, discrete things, because you got to be able to measure where you are against those goals and objectives. Moving on to the next letter in the Daddy framework, the A, that's the analysis phase. Now, there's 4 perspectives that you must consider when you're doing your analysis. Those are your personal goals, market demand, competition, and your capabilities. Now, everybody thinks those things are equal, if not, skewed the exact opposite way than what they are. Everybody thinks, well, gee whiz, Randy, I guess I got to launch a company about my, that's centered around my capabilities. Wrong. You are not doing the work. The asset called your company is doing the work. And your asset has got to have that capabilities. So where can your asset that you're creating generate capabilities? They do it through partnerships, with other companies. They do it through the employees that you hire into that company. It's not you. everybody gets caught up and say, well, Randy, geez, all I know how to do is this. I guess I have to launch a company doing that. And it doesn't work. You've got to think bigger than that. It's not you who's doing the work. You're an employee. You're creating an asset. You're creating a company. Big difference. It's a mindset shift. So what I have done is I've put a little bit of scale to how, the proper weighting to each one of these perspectives. And I'm telling you, it's all about what your goals are. If you want to have a lifestyle company where maybe you're making $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $800,000 a year, well, there's an optimal strategy for that, and that optimal strategy may not have to deal with being acquired. So now you're looking at an income-based, company where maybe you are one of 7 or 8 people on a subcontract, but you own the company, that's being subcontracted to, and you're also the project manager for your team, and you're working every single day alongside your employees on this contract, whatever your billing rate is, let's say it's $250,000. Well, you're pocketing all of that while you're skimming about $75,000 off of each one of your employees. Now, hey, you're making $600,000-$700,000. I didn't do the math, so so please don't gig me on that. But you're making well over $500,000 off of that, and that's a great lifestyle company. Now the deal is, it's never going to have any equity. That means you're never going to be able to sell it, and that's if you have a larger goal to retire, for example. Say, hey, I'm going to have $10 million in the bank. Well, my son, he quickly realized that he was going to have to be in a situation where he could sell his asset, for a multiple based on how much he was making in the company. So that's the way. That's why personal goals are the driving factor. It's the most important aspect of all of this. So let's move on. What is the define phase? This is the DAD. So we're in the second D here. Well, you got these perspectives. You got the personal goals, you got your capabilities, you got your competition, and you got your market demand. So your personal goals, essentially you're determining whether or not you're going to create an income versus an equity-based strategy for your company. Market demand, hey, that shapes your horizontal and vertical markets. Competition, that points you into very specific accounts, and it tells you or suggests how you can differentiate your company. And then finally, capabilities. Again, this is by far the least important, because let's look at it in scale here. Your personal goals so much more important than your capabilities. But a lot of people, they don't feel sufficiently confident unless they're doing something that is related to an area that they have some knowledge in, or a significant knowledge base. So now let's continue on with the define phase. You found this intersection, but this is great, for imagery, but it's not actionable. Like, well, what do you really mean, Randy? Finding the intersection of these circles. Come on, make it real to us. Let's make it real. This is where you need to find your horizontal markets. Your horizontal markets. Your horizontal markets are your services, what you do for a customer. And that has to align with your capabilities of your company. Not so much yours, but your company's. And it also has to align with your business strategy. For example, if you need an equity-based company, that means something you're going to sell. There aren't too many people who are going to buy an administrative support company that supports the Department of Interior. It's just not that sexy. Like, there's the market demand for, hey, I want to break into the receptionist business, for the Department of Interior. So, your horizontal markets have got to align with not only your capabilities of your company, but also to your personal goals of 20 million or 10 million or whatever that is. And you'll never be able to sell an admin assistant company that focuses, on doing reception duty. Now you can, but it's going to be a lot harder, and there's less opportunities to actually do that. So in the federal government marketplace, man, they make it easy. Everything is defined by NAICS codes. So 541611, that's the big one for small businesses. Administrative management and general management consulting services, and that's a catch-all. That's white-collar work. And then you've got your computer systems design services, your custom computer program services, and your data processing, hosting, and related services. My son's a UC Berkeley comp sci grad. So guess what he wants to do? He wants to do something really dealing with IT and computers. So that's why he has the horizontal markets that he has right there. Now, you've got to also define what your vertical markets are. Well, that's based on market demand. Who's buying what it is that that he's able to sell. So you start looking around and you can find this in a dozen different places. Just look at government spending by agency and NAICS code, and they do the analysis for you. They really do it. It's already been done. All you got to do is just find it on the internet, and they'll tell you how much Health and Human Services is spending my NAICS code every single year, and they'll even break it down by what percentage of that is going to small businesses and so on. Same way with the intelligence community, DoD, and DHS. There's a lot of good information out there. I'm going to tell you a little industry insider tip here. Budget documents. If you're in DHS, you are going to create a budget document that's going to accompany your budget request for Congress, and it's going to explain why you need it and what you're going to do with this money specifically. We're going to do this or we're going to do that. Great business insights and intelligence from budget documents. So anyway, so you have to find vertical markets. If you are in an equity based strategy because of your personal goals, well, then you may want to look into the M&A markets as well, just to make sure that these are hot item markets, as well as what you did with your services. So now we're almost done with the define phase. We've got to find the intersection of these vertical markets with horizontal markets. Those intersections are candidate account plans or accounts. Now, if you talk to 10 different people and ask them what an account is or an account plan, you're going to get 10 different answers. But this is the answer that I provide people. An account plan is nothing more than a strategy to sell a specific service to a specific targeted customer. And so right here, he's got several candidate ones. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to tell him that he needs to take that one step further and figure out which one of these pairings right here, these intersections, his set aside is underrepresented. For example, let's just say he's a hub zone company. And which one of these agencies, which one of these pairings are they unable to find enough hub zones who could do custom computer programming services or to do data processing, hosting, and related services? Is HHS having a problem finding enough hub zones to do that? And here's how you find this out. You go to the SBA, Small Business Administration's website, and you look at their small business scorecards. Now, I'm just going to tell you the reality here. The government, they're giving themselves their own score. So everybody gets an A or an A plus. And yet, now this is what's crazy. They're giving themselves A's and A pluses and high-fiving themselves for doing such a great and wonderful job. Now I'm going to tell you the reality. 2/3 of these federal government agencies do not meet all of their goals. Over 2/3 of them. So, but yet they're somehow or another making A's or A pluses. And where they're not making them is these individual, set aside types and individual NAICS. Like, for example, wow, they didn't have a single, a small business doing any of this stuff, in the hub zone set aside category. Wow, man, that's not right. There's a ton of work that they were pushing out in that area, and yet not a single bit of that work of that $5 billion that was going out in HHS, medical or healthcare IT services that went to a hub zone. Well, guess where I'm going to target if I'm a hub zone company? I'm going to go to HHS. I'm going to start banging on contracting officers' doors and say, hey, you got all these opportunities coming up, and I know that hub zones can do this work because I are one. And, you need to give us a chance here. And they'll say, oh, God, thank you so much. We've been being beaten up for not meeting our hub zone goals, for like the last 5 years, most definitely. Or, subcontracting goals where the prime bidders can't find enough hub zones to help them out on their large IT HHS contracts. So that's what I'm going to recommend that you do. I'm going to recommend figure out where you've got the least competition, because that's what we're talking about here. It's all about competition for this one. So we've addressed your 4 perspectives here. We've got your dream, which translates into your personal goals. We've got your capabilities. We've got the market demand, and now we've got competition covered. Those are your 4 perspectives that were used to figure out what kind of company that you're going to be and where you're going to sell your services. That's what you just accomplished. So you've already done that in the first half of the daddy, phase. So hey, you're doing good. You're doing very well. So now let's look at the next D in daddy, and that's develop. That's D right here, the develop phase. Well, again, I've been in this industry for well over 2 decades, going on a quarter of a century, and I've made a lot of mistakes, but I also learned a lot of things. And this is what's coming from nearly a quarter of a century of hard-learned lessons. It's what I call the quick start market penetration plan. You've already got your business strategy in your first 3 letters of the daddy. And I tell people to do this before they even file for their limited liability company, their LLC or C Corp or S Corp, whatever they feel like they need to be. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I've yet to meet a small business that couldn't get by initially with just being an LLC. But the reason why I tell people to wait until after they until they've completed their business strategy development is, what are you going to name your company? You don't want to, if you're going to get into database management or something like that, the last thing you want to do is come up with a name that doesn't include something that insinuates that you're in the data management industry. So, and as a small business, we could talk all day long, and I do on other videos and lessons. Your name is your first line of marketing, and your name has got to work for you. It can't be a vanity plate. It can't be Wimmer and Associates, because Wimmer's not branded. You see Wimmer and Associates, like, what the hell do they do? They're not involved with doing strategic studies or analyses. But my first company was called Analytic Strategies. Hey, they sound like they actually could help out with this major study here. And you need every single thing that you can to get yourself going, to get market penetration as a small business. Now, once you're a $1 billion company, the initials IBM, everybody knows who IBM is, but at the very beginning, they were international business machines. They actually had to tell people what it is that they did. And that's what you need to do. You need to tell people what you're doing. So that's why I had this after becoming legal, because that entails creating your name, registering for NAICS codes and SAM and so on. Now, everybody thinks that as soon as they register in SAM, you're going to have all these people just start banging on their door, say, oh, hey, we want to give you work. Reality check here. That will never, ever, ever in a million years happen. In fact, let's talk a little bit about that valley of despair. There's well over 100,000 small businesses in the federal government contracting space. Yeah, but you say, oh, but you know what though? I'm a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. Okay, great. You're down to 19,000. Oh, wow. That's a lot of competition. The very first thing you got to do is you got to figure out how you're going to stand out in the crowd. Because there's a crowd. even in the federal government contracting industry, where only 5% of U.S. companies participate, there's still a lot of competition. The easiest way I know how to do that is to get ISO certification. If you are ISO 9001 Quality Management System certified, you are in the top 1% of U.S. companies with respect to corporate maturity, being low risk, and quality. And it'll never be easier than when you are a small business. So you got to get corporate credentials. That's why I started helping, Government Contracting Academy clients get ISO certified, because they need to have that discriminator. You need to stand out in the crowd. While you're working on getting your corporate credentials, you need to start looking legit. I tell people that they need to look like every other $500 million company. You do not want to look small, and you don't have to look small. IBM's website is created using the same software language as you would create yours in, HTML or whatever it is. There's no reason at all why your website can't look just as professional as theirs. And they say, Randy, you're full of it. They could talk about their $1 billion this and their $1 billion that and their $1 billion, their contracts. If you actually go to these elite multi-billion-dollar companies, they rarely mention the size of their contracts. In fact, I think they go out of their way not to do that, because they don't want to be placed under scrutiny. Like, this pig's getting a little bit too fat. Maybe he's turning into a hog. People don't like that. So they don't even mention dollars on their websites. They talk about being a thought leader. They talk about giving back to the community. They talk about how their services integrate to solve problems in the real world. That's what they do. And you can too. And that's one of the things that we talk about in Government Contracting Academy when we talk about storefront, is you got to tell a compelling story. Now, everybody thinks you're marketing to the federal government. You are not. You're marketing to your partners, because you're not going to win any sizable type of contract without having a strategic partner, and you got to show that you're legit. You're not going to be able to staff any positions whatsoever, that you win, unless you show your potential employees that you're legit and that you're up and coming. And nobody wants to come work with some guy working out of his garage, or at Starbucks on a $50 templated website page. Nobody wants to do that. They want to feel like they're joining a small business. That's fine. You can sell a small business and say, hey, we're the next Apple. We're the next this. We're the next that. We're creating something special here. You can be part of the team that creates something special. And that's another reason why you don't want to have a vanity nameplate for a company like Wimmer and Associates. Nobody wants to be an associate. Nobody wants to be the Wimmer Group, where they're in the group. They all want to be, analytic superheroes. LLC, where everybody's a superhero in the company. That's just another sidebar there. And then finally, once you're looking legit, that's when you do massive outreach. I can't tell you how many discussions I have with people, and they say, Randy, it's just not working for me. I tried your quick search strategy, and it's just not working. And I said, golly, man, how many people did you reach out to? 7 people last week. And I said, okay, you come back to me when you've reached out to at least 7,000. And then let's have a legitimate conversation here if nothing is working for you. It's a numbers game. Federal government contracting is a numbers game. If you put the numbers in there, you are going to have wild success. Most people don't put the numbers in. So let's pull all of this together. The very first thing you got to do is you got to launch what I call a sexy company. It can't be just, hey, I just got my LLC for $100, online, and hey, I'm a woman, so I'm a woman-owned small business. Give me some work. Or I'm a minority-owned, or I'm a service-disabled veteran-owned, small business. Give me some work. And it does not happen. Like I said, whatever set-aside category you are, there's thousands of them out there. Now, your very first thing that you want to do is you want to get a subcontract. So the most important thing to a prime bidder who's looking for small business partners for their small business utilization plan after they win the contract, is that you're low risk. Most people don't realize this, but risk is half of your technical risk rating evaluation of your proposal. Risk is half your score. Risk. Nobody thinks about that. So this prime bidder, IBM, he's got to be the lowest risk company in the world. When they bid on something, they've got a, that's really big, that has a small business subcontracting requirement. They've got to subcontract almost a third of that contract to small businesses that nobody's ever heard of. Nobody's ever heard of. So IBM, the lowest risk company in the world that nobody ever even has to bat an eye about being risky, is now terrified that they're looking risky in their proposal because about a third of their contract is going to be performed by small businesses that the government automatically assumes are inherently risky. So they need you to have risk mitigators. No kidding, tangible, irrefutable proof points that you're low risk. And what are those? Luckily for you, they're ISO certifications. It's not how big your company is. It's not how many contracts that you have. It's not how big your office space is. None of that matters. None of that matters. Because it's not tangible. It's not a proof point. It's not something that they can verify. And, if you can't provide a proof point to something that you say on a proposal, don't say it. Because it's just taking up space. Because the government, they'll just put a line through it. It'll read like fluff to them. And you've just wasted that valuable real estate. You have to have low risk corporate maturity indicators, proof points, something that they can verify. And again, luckily for you, you can be a one-person company and get these ISO credentials, and you can project yourself as being low risk. So now, let's just say you go out and you get your hub zone status, which is a set-aside category that every startup can get. It's a little bit of a hassle, but basically you can set up your office, in a hub zone area, and it could be your brother's, spare bedroom, but he lives in a hub zone. Well, you also hire your brother, so you've got 50% of your employees, you and your brother, who, your brother lives in a hub zone, so there's 50% residing in a hub zone. You're using his bedroom as an office, so you have your primary office in a hub zone too. So you just met all the requirements to become a hub zone. Well, the reason why I say hub zone is because the vast majority of federal government agencies they don't even come close to meeting their hub zone goals, especially for white collar stuff. So if you're a hub zone and you're rocking 2 ISO certifications, guess what? In 2023, there were only 16 peers that you would have. 16 peers. You'd be the 17th company last year that was a hub zone with 2 ISO certifications. And there's billions of dollars in hub zone earmarks, both prime contracts and subcontracts. Billions. And you'd be one of 17 hub zones with 2 ISO certifications. So that's what I'm talking about. You've got to be sexy. You got to make yourself a special snowflake. Not that hard to do when you're a startup. Next thing you do is you create that compelling storefront. Again, your website and your LinkedIn page got to look like every other $500 million a year company. Because it can, but you got to know what to put on it. And you got to just look sharp, and then once you have something sexy to sell and promote, and you got a storefront where you look legitimate, then you do massive outreach, where you are blasting out the good news that you are a highly sexy hub zone company. So, and there's ways to do that. You can do that through LinkedIn automation, where you could literally send out to hundreds a week, to targeted people and targeted companies. You can go to the same LinkedIn and you can download, their emails. There's products out there that'll do that for you. That will allow you to download up to 2,500 LinkedIn emails a day. For target. Hey, that That's Northrop Grumman's vice president of logistics, and I'm a logistics startup. Guess who I want to contact? You hit the Wiza button, and next thing you know, and that's the product is Wiza, Wiza. And then you hit the button, and boom, you have that person's email. So you do that, you can create lists of people that are thousands of leads long. I did the math. There are over 40,000 large business executives who are in roles that can traditionally give you a teaming agreement or a subcontract. 40,000. So if you use automation like LinkedIn messaging automation, or you use something like MailChimp where you're blasting out an email that can be personalized to that person, like, hi, first name, Bob, you can reach out to a lot of people. So while you're doing this massive outreach and while you're getting traction, market penetration, that's when you're learning the industry. That's when you're adjusting. But you can do all of this literally in a month or two. You can go from having a dream right this very second to blasting out that you're a special snowflake, that you're one of 17 hub zones with 2 ISO certifications, with a beautiful website that looks perfectly professional, that would look just as polished as IBM's, because I've got people who can help you out with that. And I can show you how to do the outreach, and it's you could be blasting out to literally tens of thousands of business development executives that you're one of 17, and they're woefully leaving billions of dollars in earmarks on the table. It's horrible how poorly they're meeting their subcontracting goals. And the deal is your target is pretty big. When you're first starting out, anything that is remotely associated with your target market is good enough. For example, if you want to become a cyber company, anything IT related, hell, even a help desk, because there's going to be cybersecurity stuff that comes to the help desk. And like, hey, is this spam, or is this ransomware, or is this or that kind of stuff? And you can spin that to make it seem like it is 100% relevant to your future cybersecurity bids. You just got to be close. So that's what market penetration is designed to do. It's designed to get you somewhere in one of these green, ellipses that you can, twist and spin to make it seem like it's 100% relevant to your target market. Now, you got to execute. You got to execute the plan. That quick start, plan. And then what you really need to do to get better is you need to use, if you don't want to get ISO certified, 9001, that's fine, but you still got to do the things that an ISO certified company does. You've got to assess your performance every single month. If you want to actually get a lot of stuff done, you got to have documented processes and procedures, roles and responsibilities. So when you start hiring people into your corporate office to help you, they know what the hell to do. And they're just not part of your gaggle following you around watching you do everything and running yourself crazy. So you also got to take a look at your key performance indicators. Are you doing the things that you need to be doing to have the success that you want to have? Key performance indicators. All of that stuff fits into the ISO framework. If you don't measure it, it will not improve. That is a fact. If you want to lose weight, if you're not stepping on the scale every Friday, you're not going to lose weight. If you want to learn how to type, if you're not measuring how quickly and how many errors that you're making, you're never going to improve. And that's one of the things that I really liked about ISO. It was a difference maker for me. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at randall.wimmer@governmentcontractingacademy.com. I can also be reached from any of these websites. governmentcontractingacademy.com, gcacampus.com, and randall.wimmer.com is my author website. And I recently wrote a book called Good Enough to Launch Your Company that really discusses almost every single thing that was in this video. So I hope this helps, and I'll talk to you soon.